Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a full BARD party build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. We'll be using each of the 4 BARD subclasses with the College of Sword, Lore, Glamour, and Valor, and we'll be very minimally using multi-classes just to get the most out of each of the classes. The BARD is awesome because it's the jack of all trades, and each of them can actually fill a great role in our team, and I'll be showing you how to do that in this video. And we will first be starting with the College of Sword, which is going to be our offensive powerhouse here. This is what I believe to be the strongest build in the game. Now, for the start, we'll here go with the Bard, and we're going to take the Vicious Mockery cantrip, and we'll also grab Mage Hand. Mage Hand's awesome because it can throw health potions, making us actually a good healer, and we can also throw water bottles to set up our casters, because the Bard can get Cone of Cold as a magical secret, making it do upwards of 128 damage. We want to have someone, if you're the face of the party, it's best to have friends, however, and have everyone else with Mage Hand. We can take another cantrip later on. And it's nice to have someone with Minor Illusion because you can group enemies up in that spot. Now, we do have a bit of everything here. I think on this build, it's nice to have Dissonant Whispers as it's an enchantment spell. Later on, there's an item that lets us cast this as a bonus action after we do our weapon attacks. We also want to have Thunderwave. The pushback is great. One person on the team should have Long Strider to apply it to everybody. One person should have Speak with Animals. If you're the face, I would just recommend having it on your character to make it easier. And then we're also going to have the Healing Word for the bonus action heal. And starting instrument, personal preference really. We'll then take, if you're going to use the Hags here, put your Charisma to 17, you boost up to 18. For a Bard, it could make sense to do it that way. Otherwise, we're going to go with a stat spread of the following here. If one of your characters is the Constitution Amulet later on, you can jump that stat, but I'm not for the purposes of this video. You'd want to put it into Wisdom for the saves. And we want to have 16 Dexterity as we're going to be the main attacker on this team, so this works out very well and lets us use a lot of different weapons. In particular, the finesse-based weapons, so Valour early game is a good choice. Now, we get the Jack of all trades here. Everyone's going to get this, and we also get the Song of Rest, so if you got a Warlock, they're going to be in luck here, and we're actually going to have one multi-class to have the Warlock just to take advantage of that in particular. Now, for our next level spell, Disguise Self can be great because this lets you use a bunch of other Githyanki type gear because you can equip it after using this disguise, and you get to keep all the benefits even after removing disguise. I'm just going to take it on this one. It's also nice to have somebody with long Feather Fall, but for the early game spells, you're going to have somebody that has it or scrolls of it. Now for our subclass, we're going to be going with the College of Sword. A little humble plug here, I put out my College of Winter Spirit Bard subclass. It is an Ice Mage with a ton of unique spells, so if you enjoy the Bard, I would definitely recommend this one. It was a lot of fun to put this together. But with the College of Sword, we got our Slashing Flourish here. This is a big damage dealer for us because this lets us attack 2 enemies for the price of 1 in a Bardic Inspiration. But why this is so good is that we can later take in 2 levels of the Paladin to get Divine Smites, keep our level 6 spell slots, and then we can Divine Smite 2 targets at once for 4 smites per turn. It's more than a Paladin could ever do, and we're a better Paladin in that way, despite being a Bard. So yeah, these are really good, and Slashing Flourish lets us attack the same target twice. As a patch 8, it hasn't been changed, so it's presumably meant to be that way. For our fighting style, dueling is nice if you want to use a shield. We're going to go with 2-weapon fighting for this setup. And for the spell we'll be taking here, we do get access to Cloud of Daggers, which is nice for guaranteed damage. But I think that going with Hold Person works best because this gives us critical hits, which we can turn into, if you have 2 targets beside each other, a Slashing Flourish and a Smite, it becomes insane damage because the Smite adds critical hit die as well. Hold Person is going to be a big part of this build. It's really strong, or for this party build, I should say, because everyone can take advantage of it. We're then going to take Mage Hand here again. It's our portable healer, but someone on the team should have Minor Illusion. And then for the next spell that we're going to be taking, since we don't have many concentrations that we want to be holding, Silence can be nice if we want to shut down other spellcasters. Alternatively, Cloud of Daggers is really nice just because, again, guaranteed damage, so that can be good. Crown of Madness is another pretty decent one too, and you could use that in the early game. Now, I recommend having everybody with Alert, especially our high damage dealers. So this character in particular wants to take Alert first, just because they're going to get in and attack, presumably first in combat. Another one that I do want to mention for this is Savage Attacker, since we're going to add in Smites. Those will reroll Smites as well, and that becomes actually insane. Another thing I should mention is this build is best utilized on a High Elf that can take Booming Blade for that extra damage and free attack. We'll also then get our Bardic Inspiration up to 1d8 here and get access to level 3 spells. Glyph of Warding is really nice, especially if you're like a half elf or an elf fully. With this, you can drop the sleep glyph at your feet and put everyone to sleep except for yourself. Also, it's like a short-range fireball or lightning ball, so pretty effective spell. It's going to be one of the main damage options that we have in the mid-game. Once we get to level 6, however, this is a huge power spike because we now get the extra attack, meaning we can Slashing Flourish, and hit 4 targets. And on we'll get it back on a short rest, which is pretty insane. We got that at the last level. Now for the next leveled spell, I like to have Fear here because, again, we don't have many concentrations, so to have a concentration that makes enemies drop their weapons is pretty strong if you get set up to do it. Level 7 gives us another another option for crowd control with Confusion. So I'll just quickly announce how this works. Basically, if you confuse an enemy, it has a 50-50 chance of either skipping its turn or attacking someone at random. It can attack your teammates still, but it's a random chance. We also got Greater Invisibility here, which is a really good spell to have on this build. And we're a melee attacker. We can kind of fill a rogue type playstyle, so I think that works very well there. Level 8 gives us another choice in level 4 spell. And we can even go back and take Plant Growth because this does not require crowd control or a concentration for the crowd control. I'm just going to grab Confusion because we're going to use the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel on this particular build. And then for the ability score improvement, I guess Charisma works well. Or since we're a melee attacker, we could go with the Dexterity-based improvement. But since we are going with the Paladin, I do think the best option is to go with the Savage Attacker, which is going to reroll our damage die on our melee weapon and on our critical or our Divine Smite, which whenever we critically hit, we get a lot of damage off that way. Level 9 gives us another choice in spell here. At level 5, we can take Hold Monster, very good spell. Dominate Person can be an okay one, but we can always just take that at next level. Level 10 is the big one because we get a cantrip, cool. But the big thing is the magical secrets here. We'll go with Dominate Person. So this is where things get tricky because we want to have someone on the team with Counterspell, but my thoughts are the Lord Bard can take this early on in the game. I typically like to have at least 2 Counterspell users on the team at one given moment. We could go with Banishing Smite since we are a melee attacker. Just be mindful this does use our bonus action, and we have a good bonus action use, so I don't prefer to use that. Now, Spirit Guardians is something I love to take. However, we do have another caster on our team that can use it. And you can only damage an enemy 1 time per turn with Spirit Guardians, so it's not good to have a full team of Spirit Guardians because it's just wasted actions at that point. I do want to mention Command as a spell on this build since we had this build is going to use the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. If we didn't take the Paladin, this is a really good choice because it's a charisma-based spell that just shuts down enemies big time. Scorching Ray is another option, but my personal favorites are Cone of Cold and Conjure Elemental. Reason being, Conjure Elemental, getting a summon is massive because it just tanks hits for your team, 100 extra health. And the other thing is the Water Elemental's main punch makes the target take double cold damage. This is just an insane combo, and it used to be the Water Myrmidon, but that got nerfed in Patch 8. This is still an insanely powerful combination. Another choice is to take Counterspell, but we can actually have a couple others on our team with Counterspell, so it just depends what you want to use your reaction for. And if you have a weapon that has a reaction built in, you're going to eat it up and can't use it for Counterspell. So I think on this build, especially with the face of the party, you may use Illithid abilities. It's best to leave that Counterspell for the others, and we're going to go with Cone of Cold and Conjure Elemental. We'll then take for skill proficiencies Persuasion and Intimidation, since we're the face of the party, and then this is when we're going to do one of the few multi-classes of this video. We're going to add in the Paladin. It's just absurdly strong. We're just going to grab this. You get the Oath of Vengeance here for the Inquisitor's Might, or you can grab the Oath of the Crown, which can add your proficiency bonus to a target's attack rolls. Kind of nice, but I think Inquisitor's Might just works a little bit better because we can daze targets, and we got a lot of enchantment spells that'll land easier when you can daze the target. Daze means they have disadvantage on wisdom saves, so things like Command and Hold Person. Level 2 Paladin gives us what we want, our Divine Smites. Set it as a reaction, and then our Slashing Flourishes can Divine Smite, and it becomes crazy. We also get a fighting style, so we can take defense here. Alternative choice if you don't want smites is you could take the Fighter for action surge, but this just ends up being a lot stronger because we want Command. We'll also then take these smites, and Bless is nice, and Divine Favor is another good option, but we don't have someone with Bless on the team, so we may as well get it through this means here. You could take this in at level 6, so once you get the extra attack from the Bard, you could add in the Paladin. And this is the Argentina's Gift outfit, if you're wondering, from Aeroday on Nexus Mods, part of their Radiant Threads. And now for equipment. So since we have medium armor proficiency, we can take advantage of Armor of Agility to get our armor class quite high without a shield of 22. In the early game, that means that we can use things like the Adamantine Scale Mail, which is insane. We can use this on the Valour Bard as well. You can craft 2 of them or make the shield. Whatever is best medium armor available, we do want to have kind of medium armor on 3 of our characters here. I'll explain why as we get to the next character, but you could alternatively throw on the Potent Robe and get additional damage on your Vicious Mockeries if you wanted to, but I do think that going with the best available medium armor works best until you get the Armor of Agility. You could alternatively use the On-T or the Unwanted Masterwork Scale Mail. Now for our cloak, really for cloaks is best available. I have the Deathstalker Mantle because we want to have the Vivacious Cloak on, or Thunderskin Cloak on somebody else, but this one works great if you're the Dark Urge. If not, you can use the Cloak of Protection for the increased armor class to bring it up to 23. Now I have the birthright hat on this character because we actually have a big boosted ability here from patch 8. The Gloves of the Battle Mage's power was patched and fixed now, so whenever we do an attack with a weapon that uses a spell or a cantrip, we get Arcane Acuity. Booming Blade counts, Divine Smite counts, and a secret little trick is we can actually get every weapon attack to count. In just a moment, I'll explain that. But we got the Birthright hat here because we don't really need the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, but you can use this in the early game until you get to the Birthright hat, which is really nice. The Haste Helmet also works great too. And we also got the Evasive Shoes, or you can use the Nair's Boots, the Disintegrating Nightwalkers if you want in the early game. Now, what we're going to roll with for rings is why I want to mention the Gloves of Battle Mage's power. So I have Crusher's Ring on, but what we can do is take the Shadow Blade Ring. This is actually kind of absurd how strong it is. So you don't have to do this, but there is also the Knife of the Undermountain King in the early game, which also has the Shadow Blade ability. The reason we want to do this is we want to basically be setting up to be able to do a little bit of extra damage. So with the Shadow Blade Ring, we're going to summon this in. Because we have Savage Attacker, this means we get 2 damage die on our weapon attacks to reroll. So this becomes pretty crazy because that's now a massively boosted damage. We can also then remove the Shadow Blade Ring and then throw on like the Crusher's Ring for movement speed or whatever ring we want to roll with. And then what makes this even crazier is we got our Shadow Blade here, which is a 2d8. We can have it do a Divine Smite on all of our attacks, which is going to boost up the damage even further by 2d8, 3d8, 4d8. And then even further on that, we got our Slashing Flourishes letting us attack targets 4 times basically per turn for 4 smites. And then we get the bonus action attack from Belm with the Perfectly Bound Strike, which does that 2d8 of psychic damage that's getting re-rolled. So we do insane amounts of melee damage. Another thing that we can go with, if we, as mentioned, want to buff this up all the way, is then throw on the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, which lets us do our Vicious Mockery as a bonus action. It lets us do Command and Hold Person, Command being actually an insane spell because we can upcast that to level 6. We can also do a bonus action Dominate Person, Hold Monster, Confusion, and even things like Dissonant Whispers if we need to finish an enemy off. So this becomes really crazy because we got so much damage going out all at once. And then we also have the Caustic Band for a little bit of extra damage. You can use the Killer Sweetheart for a free crit if you wanted to. And if we want to take this even further, since we got medium armor proficiency, we can take the Steel Watcher helmet. This lets us see in magical darkness and holds our concentrations better. What this means is that we can throw an Arrow of Darkness down, hide out in it, and then our Shadow Blade will get advantage on all of its attack rolls, which becomes pretty crazy. If we're going to do that, we may as well grab the Shadow Cloaked Ring, which will add a 1d4 of additional damage onto our weapon attacks. So you can see it in another 1d4. And the craziest part I didn't even mention is if you grab the Resonant Stone in Act 2, this will double our psychic damage. So that becomes 2d8 times 2, and re-rolling our damage die and adding Divine Smite and attacking multiple targets. This is insane. Pretty high damage. I also want this target to move first, so I have the Hellrider Longbow for that +3 to initiative, and the Amulet of Greater Health to give ourselves more health. And now, this is a support style build, since the last one is so crazy high in the damage. We'll have Shadowheart here as a College of Lore Bard. Now, we get the Magical Secrets at level 6, and that's what makes it so strong. We're going to go with, again, the Vicious Mockery and the Mage Hand Healer, which can throw those health potions for us. We'll also then grab Healing Word. I don't love going with anything else like the Cure Wounds. Like, it's an additional bit of damage, or healing, but it takes your full action. So, since we didn't take Vicious Attached Insidious Laughter on this one, we'll go with that. We'll also throw in Dissonant Whispers. Fairy Fire's nice, but I like to have Thunderwave for that support pushback. It's actually not a bad damage option. We're then going to have our stat spread of somewhere around here. We can, instead of having Dexterity at 16, put that point into our Constitution, since we can go with a medium armor option, which I'm going to discuss. And then we're going to go with the stat spread as following. Level 2 gives us that second Song of Rest, which is great. We then get to take another spell here. We'll throw on Fairy Fire for the support, and we already got someone with Longstrider there. Once we get to level 3, however, this is when we get to take our College of Lore. Now, this also gives us a nice ability, Cutting Words, so you can use this wit to distract a creature and sap its confidence. So this can eat up your reaction, just a heads up on that. But what it's going to do is it gives you a 1d6, 1d8, 1d10 at level 10. Penalty to the target's attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws, which is pretty nice because that's going to give us that support we need since we don't have a cleric. And this is kind of the cleric role. At level 6, we'll get some more support when we can add in even further spells. We're going to add in Hold Person again. Such a valuable spell. We definitely need to have that. And we don't need the Persuasion on someone that's not the face of the party. You can have someone pumped into like Sleight of Hand and Stealth. Those are like the 2 skills that I would think would work pretty well here because everyone can benefit from Stealth, especially a caster. And it's also nice to have Acrobatics so you don't get pushed around and shoved because that seems to happen all the time. Level 4 gives us another cantrip here. We can go with the Minor Illusion, I guess. or Blade Ward, since we're a support style class. We'll then go ahead and add in the actually enhance ability is really good. Advantage on an ability check with a chosen ability is pretty nuts. Since we're a support character, I'm going to add that on. Calm Emotions is also quite good because we can use this at the Harpy fight in the early game, and it just makes it so much easier to survive, especially in honor mode. Now, Lake-wise, I like to have alert first. Just being able to go first in combat can really set up a lot of things, especially if your whole team moves together. If you got the whole load initiative going together, you can swap and move between your characters, especially if one of them has like Call the Weak and you want them to finish off a bunch of targets. You can strategize further. Level 5 is nice because this is when our short rest gives everyone our bardic inspiration back. For this, we're also going to grab the Glyph of Warding. Glyph of Warding Sleep, again, great support. We'll then, at level 6, give ourselves the Magical Secrets, which we get Counterspell at this level, which is amazing to have, since no one else is going to have it here, and we want to have that spell, obviously. And we're going to grab Spirit Guardians, because, again, only one of us can use Spirit Guardians, so we may as well have the character that gets it the earliest running it, because it's just such a good spell. Now, if we had 3 choices, I would have taken Hunger of Hadar. This is a good spell, too, don't get me wrong. If you hate Spirit Guardians, you can take Hunger of Hadar. It just doesn't upcast past level 3, whereas Spirit Guardians does, and gets a lot more damage. So I think these two work best. You can add on a different damage option, like Lightning Bolt or Fireball, if you really wanted to, but I think that this is just a good mix. And what's funny is you can actually use Thunder Wave, get up close with Spirit Guardians, deal damage that way. And then we also have access to things like Plant Growth now, since we can't use Fear for having a concentration already. We can use Plant Growth, which will stop enemies from running away from us as we chase them down with our Beyblade of Spirit Guardians. Now, at next level here, I think it's nice to have Confusion. Polymorph is another decently good choice because there's some situations where that's really good. Greater Invisibility is always something that's nice, but I like to have it earlier on the other class because they have the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, which works with that spell. Once we get to level 8 here, we get another feat. And we get access to, we can take, I think that works well. Or actually, Freedom of Movement's kind of nice. If the target's stunned, you could free them out of it, which could be actually pretty useful. And it makes it so that you don't get slowed down by difficult terrain, which is absolutely a huge boost. We'll then go with an ability score improvement or Charisma, since we're going to be doing a bit of spell casting. It's nice to have that boosted up a bit. We could also, if you wanted to, take the medium armor, moderately armored here, since we don't have access to medium armor, and we want to use the luminous armor. So we can do it this way, or we can multi-class. The multi-class way is cheaper and better, and honestly, with patch 8, it's the way to go. But alternatively, you could go with just the medium armor master here. I'm going to go with the multi-class because we can add in a single level of Hexblade just to make this a little bit better. We'll then take for our next spell here, Hold Monster, because it's Hold Monster. Amazing spell. And level 10, we get access to cantrips. Again, we'll take Minor Illusions. Thanks to have everybody with that. We'll then take Dominate Person or Planar Binding, since we have someone else with Dominate Person. Magical Secrets for this character. I'm very tempted to go with the Cone of Cold Conjure Elemental combo again, because this is just so good. However, we could go with the option of taking Scorching Ray, which we can take the Hat of Fire Acuity, and then we can get our spell save boosted up really high, and then go Cone of Cold. Because that's just a good damage option. But since the enchantment, or the College of Glamour, is better since they get a bonus action control spell, I think I'm going to leave the Hat of Fire Cutie for them and go with the Conjure Elemental. This combo is just so crazy, but we already Spirit Guardians, which is what we really wanted. You could throw on Lightning Bolt too if you didn't want Cone of Cold, but honestly, this spell is just so powerful. It's good to have some very high offensive power work there. Actually, you know what? I might actually just throw Lightning Bolt on because the Steel Watchers, it's a tough call, but having another Conjure Elemental is great just because they tank hits for the team, and they got a teleport so they can spread out really well. And we'll take Acrobatics on this character so they don't end up slipping and falling. We'll take another level of the Bard here. This gives us our Otto's Irresistible Dance, which is not resistible on the very first turn, but it can resist it afterwards. It's pretty good. And for the final one, we could take the feat for the medium armor, but honestly, it makes a lot more sense for us to go with the Warlock here because this will give us the medium armor. It also gives us the shield spell. It's ridiculously better to do it this way. Patch 8 was kind of silly to do this, but we could also throw on Hex if we wanted another concentration. I think it's best to go with the Hellish Rebuke and Shield spell here. 2 different reactions. I mean, we have a few of them. You could alternatively throw on Armor of Agathis and give yourself that extra cold damage and temporary health, which is really nice. And then for the cantrips, we're going to get Eldritch Blast, the best cantrip in the game. And Booming Blade doesn't really fit on this setup, but you could add it there. And alternatively, Bone Chill is nice because it stops targets from healing, and that helps in a couple fights in Act 2. Oh yeah, we're really just taking this for the defensive value that it brings. And now for gear, we're actually doing a kind of funny hybrid here. So, Morning Frost. This gives us a reliable cantrip for damage with the the Ray of Frost there, which will reduce target's movement speed. It also boosts up our cold damage and can possibly apply chilled, which is great because we have, like, this is just a really good one to go with because this is going to give us an easy time to apply conditions, which we can then use the Boots of Stormy Clamor in Act 1 to apply reverberation with our Ray of Frost there. But this also allows us to set up our other teammates pretty nicely as well. Would have been better if I had Cone of Cold on this setup with this one, but we could alternatively take the Mark of Heshker staff. And alternatively, since we have multiple reactions, it might be also a nice idea to throw on the Duelist Prerogative here, because this is going to give us so that we get another reaction, which means we got 2 counter spells, we got 2 cutting words. It's a nice option since we're kind of a support class. Now, for the gear, since we got Spirit Guardians, we may as well use the Luminous Gloves and the Luminous Armor here. This is pretty crazy. Again, Scorching Ray is another good option that can be tossed onto this build to be able to apply this even quicker. We have the Consecration Ring here to apply Radiating Orbs on the target for 2 turns after a spell, and then we also do additional 2 points of damage if they're illuminated. Again, we're going to apply Spirit Guardian, or apply Radiating Orbs really easily. Now, this is where I mentioned the Thunderskin Cloak so good, because the target, if they have reverberation and they deal damage to us, we daze them, which means that we can land our control spells a lot easier. Anything with a wisdom save becomes crazy. We also got the Holy Lance Helm here, so if a target misses us instead of lands a hit, they then take radiant damage, which is going to apply all of our gear's abilities, which is kind of crazy. And we also get a bonus to Constitution saving throws, so it helps with that. And we also get the Spell Crux Amulet, which lets us restore a spell slot, which is nice because we got some pretty important things we want to use. And then we also got the hand crossbows here if we wanted to for offhand attacks. And next up, we got the College of Glamour. Now, this one's interesting. It's got some funny abilities to it. So with this, we're going to go again with our cantrip lineup of Vicious Mockery and Mage Hand. We'll then take the following spells here like we did previously, because these are kind of the best ones to go with. Most damage option in the early game is going to be the Thunder Wave there. Just the pushback's nice and thunder damage is not often resisted. We're then going to have this set stat spread here of the high dexterity. Alternatively, you can put that point into the Constitution and go with a higher Constitution score. Once we hit level 2 here, we get our Jack of all trades and the Song of Rest, which is just great because we're going to add in another Warlock a little bit later on. We'll then take, again, if you don't have someone with Longshore there, it's nice to have somebody with it. I guess I didn't take it because someone had Speak with Animals there, but level 3 gives us our College of Glamour. This lets us buff up our team, giving temporary health. This will scale up to 11 health at level 10 and be able to be applied to 4 teammates instead of 2. And then we also get the big thing here with the Mantle Inspiration so that you can apply the Charmed on the attackers. So this makes it so they don't attack them again, and it has a cool VFX on it. Now for the next spell that we'll be taking, we're going to go with the Cloud of Daggers. Again, just guaranteed damage is nice to have. Enthrall can be okay, or Crown of Madness again, but I just think Cloud of Daggers, since it's guaranteed damage, it's good to take. We'll then take at level 4 the, I guess another person with the Blade Warder. I guess it's good to have someone with light. We'll take that. And then we'll throw on, I guess we'll take the Crown of Madness for this build. We don't have Hold Person. It's highlighted because it's Wizard Gale. He's already has that there. But again, another build that we want to have alert there. Going first together in unison is extremely powerful. We'll then get our Bardic Inspiration back at short rest and the Glyph of Warding, again, giving us another reliable damage option. We then get, at level 6, our Mantle of Majesty command. This is actually pretty good because it's a bonus action that lasts for 10 turns. It's a concentration, however, but it basically gives us command that we can continually keep casting, which is good. We want to boost up our spell save for that, so I'll show you how we're going to do that with a pretty cool setup here. And then we're going to go with the Fear spell here for just more crowd control. It's probably not going to be something you use often alongside anything with concentrations. Are a little tricky to use in this setup. So we can go more so the buff route here with freedom of movement, as everything else is going to require ourselves to use a concentration. Level 8, another feat and another choice in spell. I'll grab Greater Invisibility. It's just nice to have that spell on a few people. You can go with the Charisma Increase, or you can go with the Lucky Feat here. It's kind of funny, but it works out, giving you advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws. Nice to have somebody on the team that can resist things, because it's like a divination wizard style ability. I'm just going to go with the Charisma base increase here, as I think it works best on this spellcaster focused build. Level 9 gives us another choice in spell with Hold Monster taken top priority. Just a fantastic spell to have. Level 10 gives us another cantrip here. We'll then take Blade Ward. For the next spell we'll take, we'll go Planar Binding. So we have someone else with the Dominate Person. And for our spell. Now, this build in particular, I think it's best, since we want to boost our spell save DC, this build is going to use Scorching Ray, because with Scorching Ray, we can cast this, and then we can get our boosted spell save plus 10, and with the, that's from the Hat of Fire Acuity. This means that we can land our command and control spells much easier, and our bonus action commands. And with that, we could also grab Cone of Cold here, as this is going to make it much more likely that we land our Cone of Cold with that Constitution save. Or we could grab Counterspell. Counterspell is just a really good spell to have. I think in this particular setup, we're going to go with Scorching Ray and Fire and Ice. It's funny theming, but we want to start off with Scorching Ray, then we have our bonus action spells, and then we can do Cone of Cold afterwards. Our abilities score will be, I think it's best to go with the, we'll throw History on Gale there, and we'll roll with this. Gale for Glamour. And once we get to level 11 here, this is when we can take the final spell with Auto's Irresistible Dance, or we could go with Eye Bite here. Eye Bite is actually nice, besides the fact that it's a concentration. Same thing with this here, it's a concentration, but sometimes you just need that one turn of Auto's Irresistible Dance. It's not something you're going to use often when we have other spells that are a little bit better. And level 12, I do think at this point it's best to throw on, since we want medium armor on a lot of these characters, it's best to go with the Warlock combo here with the Hexblade. You could use the feat, but again, you get so much more out of a shield spell and getting a Hellish Rebuke or a Armor Vagathus or a Hex or something like you can get yourself the Eldritch Blast here, and even Bone Chill is nice to have. So again, Hexblade just adds so much to a build, it's crazy. You get martial weapons, you get medium armor, and you get shields. This is from the Heath outfit mod. And as far as gear goes in this particular build, in the early game, we're going to be going, you could, again, add in the Hexblade for medium armor proficiency, but the Protectee Sparks Wall is kind of your best available clothing in the early game. There's not many great options there. You could also throw in the Cat's Grace to give yourself the additional armor class and the dexterity boost there. You can even cheese and grab the Hellish Armor, which we're going to put on this build for the late game because we need one with a higher armor class, and otherwise we don't really have that. But you could even throw in like the Ballast Armor for a bit of support too, and Adamantine Scale Mail is great on everybody. I have the Hood of the Weave here for better spell casting, but again, you got the Hat of Fire Cutie. The moment that you can grab this with Scorching Ray, it becomes crazy because a level 5 spell Scorching Ray, if we land them all, is going to give us, or level 4 if we land them all, is going to give us a +10 to our spell save DC, so we can land our Mantle of Majesty command. I also have the Cloak of Displacement on here. This just makes the target has a harder time hitting us. The Hellish Armor as well. Wondrous Gloves, Act 1 item that gives us another Bardic Inspiration, which is great, and it also will give us a +1 to our AC. I have the Hellish Boots on here, but in the early game, you can use like the Disintegrating Nightwalkers if you don't got them on somebody else, and even things like the Boots of Aid and Comfort can kind of fit on there, but even the Hoarfrost Boots so you don't slip on ice. We then have the Marika Heshker staff here, because this will give us something that's kind of crazy. Kreska's Favor with the Bolts of Doom will give us lightning charges, and we can pair that up with our Scorching Ray because that applies the lightning charges onto there, so that becomes pretty good for damage. We also then have the Viconia's Walking Fortress, so we have a high armor class. And then I got the Ring of Regeneration, so we continue to heal ourselves. We're not getting hit often. We also have the Ring of Protection here to give ourselves even further armor class, and the Surgeon Subjugation Amulet. Now, what you can do is also go and swap and throw in the Coruscation Ring onto this build, because with this setup, we have Scorching Ray, which is going to apply the Radiating Orb, so we can kind of assist our other support class here, and I think it works out very well in that way. And you can also use like the Dark Fire Bow for the increased armor class, or the Vicious Longbow for the increased critical hit damage, or the Deadshot, because this will increase our crit chance, which is actually really nice in this build because of Scorching Ray, which will then proc our Surgeon Subjugation Amulet to paralyze the target. And for the College of Valour, now this is in a weird spot. It's not bad, but the Sword Bar is just a lot better in the same regard. But with this, we're going to go with the same cantrip lineup. We'll go with the similar spell lineup here, as I think that this one works well with the Thunder Wave, Tasha's Dissonant Whispers, and Healing Word. And then for the ability score, we're going to have higher in dexterity on this particular build. Now, the College of Glamour or Valor gets Combat Inspiration, which is a little different. You can add damage. You can add to damage roll. You can add to armor class. It's pretty cool stuff. We also get Song of Rest again here, which is pretty fun. I didn't actually add in the multi-class that I wanted to in the last build. I was going to go with a 6-6 split, but I wanted to keep it full. We'll then throw on, I guess someone with Sleep is kind of funny. There's goblins in the early game. You can put them to sleep with that, 3 of them. We'll then take the College of Valor, and I'm just going to mention again the College of Winter Spirit. Definitely recommend checking that out if you like the Bard. We'll throw on Hold Person, because again, critical hits off of Hold Person is amazing, and we're a melee class, so we may as well have that. We'll have Blade Ward here for our first spell. We'll then grab Cloud of Daggers and Alert for our feet again, so that we can go first with our team. Having everyone together is all really good. Level 5 then gives us our Glyph of Warding spell, and level 6 is when we get to get our extra attack and Counter Charm. Everyone gets Counter Charm. And this is great because, again, we can now attack twice per turn. We'll take Plant Growth for concentration-free crowd control, or Fear is actually probably a little better here because we're going to get melee range to drop enemies' weapons and make them fearful. We'll then go with Greater Invisibility here because it's good to have our melee character be able to do that. Level 8 gives us another choice in spell. We'll take Confusion, and an ability score improvement on our Dexterity actually works pretty well here since we're a melee attacker. Alternatively, you could go with the Savage Attacker, but I think it works best to keep our dexterity high on this build. Level 9, this gives us another choice in spell. We'll then take Hold Monster here. And the thing is, once we get to level 10, this is where the Bard really peaks, unfortunately. So we'll then take the Minor Illusion spell. We'll then go with a Planar Binding here. And we'll take for our Magical Secrets. Now, this is, again, we have so many characters with them. We could even throw on Pass Without a Trace, because we can do some silly stealth. This is probably the true best option. It's greater invisibility and Pass Without a Trace. You can have someone just hide in darkness and be invisible and not get any stealth checks to succeed against them. Like, they're invisible and permanently at that point. I wanted to go grab Cone of Cold and Conjure Elemental again, but since we're going to be going with a melee attacker and not have a heavy bonus action use, we can use, I guess you get Combat Inspiration we could alternatively use. You can take Banishing Smite, which is really nice, and Counterspell. I'm actually going to grab Cone of Cold just because I want to save the bonus action for our subclass ability. And it's nice to have someone else with Counterspell. Honestly, having a lot of Counterspell users is crazy good, so we can roll with it. Alternatively, again, Conjure Elemental is really nice. And on this character, we're going to have Sleight of Hand built up and Persuasion. We'll roll with that. Now for the last couple levels, we don't really need another Eye Bite and Auto's Irresistible Dance user. We could add in the Paladin for Smites, but I'm going to add in the Fighter on this build. So this gives us another fighting style. Defense is a good choice. And it gives Action Surge, which is great to have. So yeah, that gives us another boost to our overall damage. Again, Paladin can be added too. And the equipment for this build actually ends up being extremely synergetic with the rest of our team. The Helmet of Arcane Acuity. Since we have the Fire Acuity hat on another character, we have the Mental one, and then we also have our gloves. So all three of our teammates are going to have a really high boosted spell save DC, and the other one is going to make the enemies miss us often. So pretty crazy. We're going to just shut down everybody. We also got Cloak Protection here because we didn't already use it. You could really use the Cloak of Elemental Absorption, the Cloak of the Weave, your choice there. I have the Ballast Armor on here. We don't have many piercing damage options. But this is an okay one because this will make targets vulnerable to piercing damage and +2 to initiative, which is nice. However, since we got medium armor, we could go with the flame enameled armor. Honestly, we got so many options for medium armor. If we started with the fighter first, you get heavy armor proficiency, which lets us use like the armor persistence and things like that, which actually does look really good on this one. We also have things like the adamantine scale mail, which are really nice too, and you can actually use that into the late game. So that's another good option. And one more that I'll throw out there. The Unwanted Masterwork Scale is pretty nice too, getting our full bonus to Dexterity added to the armor class, which is great, but I'm going to throw on the Adamantine Scale since Act 1 item that's so good. We also got the Helldust Gloves, so when we have the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, we want to use Arrow of Many Targets to hit multiple targets, and the Helldust Gloves benefit from that, adding additional fire damage onto all those attacks. We also have the Disintegrating Nightwalkers here. I have the Killer Sweetheart for crit fishing because I'm throwing Dolar Maris on for the additional 7 damage on it, which is really great. And I have in the offhand Cold Snap. Now, this is great because when an attacker misses us with an attack, they become chilled for 2 turns, which we can then all use Cone of Cold and take them out really quickly. Kind of crazy. This is available in Act 3, and it's worth grabbing. It also boosts our armor class by 1 in the offhand. And I also have the Killer Sweetheart for, again, a free crit. And I also have the Crypt Lord Ring here, which will give us an additional level 6 Create Undead. It gives us a Mummy, which is really good because it's going to tank hits for our team. You don't have to use that, though, with this setup. We can actually throw on the Snowburst Ring and then have someone, we can be like the bow user for the team and have someone throw on. We can have us with the Titan String Bow, and then what we want to do is when we're going to walk or make sure that our bow is out, and then we can go to a teammate that has the Drake Throat Glaive and use the Draconic Elemental Weapon Cold to put the cold damage onto the bow, so that they will then have the cold damage, which will proc the Snowburst Ring and then make ice surfaces below the enemies. And then we also have a lot of other cold fun abilities. It comes kind of crazy. If you're using the Titan String Bow, using a Strength Potion will boost up the damage quite a bit. And I also have the Perioptic Wound Closure so that we receive the maximum amount of healing, and our mage hands can throw a bunch of healing potions and keep us healed up. Now for the full Bard party in combat. Our, again, main damage dealer is going to be, we have 3 of our team going first in combat, and then we have these 2 in the initiative order. If we can free them up, we then get our other teammate there to freely move between them. The thing is, though, Slashing Flourish is just so absurdly strong that we want to be using this in most situations anytime that we can. The first thing to remember, though, is going into our Reactions tab here. Make sure that we have Divine Smite set on to be turned on as a reaction, as this will make sure that we do use them whenever we use our Slashing Flourish. It becomes actually insane, the damage. So once we get into a position here, we can do a Slashing Flourish to hit both targets. I guess just one target in that case. 112 damage, pretty nuts. I meant to hit the other target there. That was not super ideal, but we can then get an actual Slashing Flourish off against both these targets here, and you can see insane amounts of damage. We don't even need to use the Divine Smite because that took out both of them there. I like to have the Divine Smites on Ask reactions as well Pretty crazy. Now, the thing is, since we have the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, this lets us do a bonus action spell too. So, yeah, we have these targets here that are hit with Confusion from, that's how I started combat off. But basically, you want to find the target that we can hit with the most amount of hold persons. Otherwise, we're going to use Command or Vicious Mockery there. We can upcast this. It's actually really great to upcast it because we can hit even more targets here. And going after the targets that we want to lock down in particular, like these ones here, and then going ahead. They can roll a saving throw. We can add cutting words to make it so that they land it. This is a, yeah, I want this to land on this person. We'll use cutting words here. And that ended up maybe, yeah, it made it so that it landed on this target here. So that's perfect. Cutting words can actually benefit your team a lot. That's why that extra bonus action, or that extra reaction is so good on them. Now, with this target here, since this target's more so a bow user, what we want to be doing is using Arrow of Many Targets. Because we have those ice surfaces that we're going to apply, and we can go ahead with a free crit to bounce it around. And then you see there they have ice surfaces below them, so they're more likely to slip and fall. This also boosts up our spell save DC from our Helmet of Arcane Acuity. We got a +8 so far. It's pretty crazy. The thing is, we want to basically be using this off on everyone. We're going to get a free crit off. That's another thing, is an Arrow of Many Targets into a target that's paralyzed will make it critically hit every single target in the area. So it's Arrow of Many Targets becomes crazy with hold person. We rolled a 12 crit, free crit off on everyone there. Again, that's insane amount of extra critical hits. And we also have those surfaces there. Action Surge is so good on this build, and then we'll just go with another Arrow of Many Targets here. I don't think there's anyone else over there. I could have used the free crit to just wipe them out, but yeah, they have water underneath them, so I had a bonus action there I could have used. And then to seal the deal, we have our Radiating Orb caster here, which just burned them alive. Basically, you want to have them in a position that they're going to have, because they have the lowest armor class, we want to have the enemies run towards us so that they get hit by this, because it's actually pretty good damage. And we got a Lightning Bolt here that we can use to hit some targets there. The Spirit Guardian just wiped out that other target. We're doing some pretty insane damage. Now, we have crowd control with the ice surfaces. We got other versions of crowd control. We can use the cutting words here, but I'd actually recommend saving it for not attack rolls, but saving throws. That's going to be the way to go. And also we have things like the command spell, so just be mindful of how many reactions and pay attention to the top bar there to see maybe you have someone coming up next in the lineup and you want to protect them or something like that. And then we have our enchantment wizard, or our enchantment wizard, our glamour bard here, which has those bonus action abilities. And we want to basically, with this class, start off with our Scorching Ray so that we get our spell save boosted up. I'm just going to blast them into this target here. So that gave us a bunch of hits, and it gave us a +8 to our Arcane Acuity as well. So we're much less likely to land our commands. We're going to use the Mantle of Majesty here, and we'll use Command Approach so that we get them to walk into the Spirit Guardians potentially. And we'll try to hit this target here. They rolled a save, but we have Cutting Words to make it land. Perfect. I wanted that target to get hit with it. Perfect, perfect, perfect. They're now held, and the next target's out of turns. We have our Water Elementals here. What's great about Water Elementals is they got the Elemental Warp here, which lets them backline it really easily, and then they can just go ahead with Slam. Slam's great because it's going to chill the target. So you see they're now, this target's now chilled, which means that they are vulnerable to cold damage, taking double cold. So Cone of Cold will now hit for a potential of 128 damage. It's pretty insane. So yeah, I'm not even going to use the extra Water Elemental there. Command Approach is funny when you have the Elementals there because they're going to then attack. There's so much synergy on the bards here. It's actually kind of absurd. Now, with the main Shadowblade attacker here, we want to basically just go in a Slashing Flourish every turn and then perfectly balanced strike. But when there's targets out of reach, we do have fun things like we can drop our glyphs here. So we can just blast with that. That's going to do lightning damage and finish them off. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. That is the full party of Bards build in Baldur's Gate 3. Very strong throughout the entire of the game. Bards are the best class in Baldur's Gate 3. one of the best classes. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed. And I hope you guys all have a fantastic day. We'll catch y'all in the next video.